Hi, Jez Park here, today working in After Effects, and I'd like to do a little tutorial on how to create a reflective text in After Effects, something like this. And really the reflective text is sold by this kind of beveled distortion here, where you have, like quite rightly, a reflection kind of pointing out this way and a reflection pointing out where the reflection should be pointing out really. And so to do this, we're going to use, I beg your pardon, the displacement map effect. And so without further ado, let's get started. Let's go new project. Let's go composition, new composition. Let's create a 3D text layer, beg your pardon. First of all, let's call this text. That will do. And here, let's create some nice fat text. Let's go XL5, Fireball XL5. And let's stick that in the middle. Now it's quite important that the color for this text here, now you can change this at a later stage if you needed to, but it's very important that it needs to be a mid-gray, 50% gray here, okay? And so that's going to be our text we're going to bevel today, or create a reflection with. The next thing we're going to do is create a reflection for our text, and I'm going to drag an image which I made in my 3D software of a reflection, and it's just a room with these kind of light panels on. And when I'm going to upload this actual project, the original project I made when I was kind of messing around with this, and there are some options to change these light panels, but for now we use this one, and I'm going to use a motion tile to give it some movement. Motion tile allows me to move if I were to move this physically now, of course there's going to be nothing on the left of it, but if I move it with this effect, then effectively it tiles itself. And so we're going to animate that. So in the timeline here, let's create some keyframes. Tile center at frame 0, let's go to frame 100 and move it in the x-axis, something like, it needs to be fairly slow. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, I think that'll do. Let's go a tiny bit further, make it look a bit faster. Okay, so once I've got that, now I can right click on it and go pre-compose. And I'm going to move all attributes into a new composition, and it's going to call this reflection comp. How about that? Now I've got this comp, so I've got no effects on it at all, pre-comp's big pardon, and I can move my text layer in here and hide it. We're not going to be actually using that for anything. In my reflection layer, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use, on the channel mode, I'm going to set the alpha channel of my text here as the alpha channel of my reflection. And that will give me the same text that I have here. Now it doesn't matter what I do with that, I can change that text, it will update here. But we need to give it some distortion on the edges, really, that's all we're looking for. And so to do that, now this is the key part of this really, we're going to add the layer styles bevel and emboss. And when it comes in initially, it has a light area and a dark area. And if we go to some of the options, if I increase the size to say something like 14, you can see it better. There's the light shining there, and it's got a nice shadow here. But we're going to use those areas, but not those colors. So to start off with, let's just change the angle to make it something like 45. So basically that would be pointing this way. So you've got a nice light area here and a dark area on the other side. But you can change that again at any stage if you want to. You can kind of play around with these. But this next section is the most important bit. The highlight mode we change to red. Take it up to 100% opacity, and it has to be on screen. It's very, very important it's on screen. When it's on screen, basically you get the pure, just the red, and not the combination of the red and the kind of grey feathering to the outside. So it's just picking up the colour red. That's all we want. With this one here, once again we turn it to screen, make sure it's not on multiply, and turn it to blue. And once again 100%. Now when we come to our reflection, we can choose the displacement effects, distort displacement map, and when it comes in looking at itself, its own layer. We need to change that to text, and we need to make sure it's on red. Now, as I move these up, you'll notice it's just the red that's being affected, nothing else. So I can control now the distortion of my bevel just with the red, just the red side here. Let's duplicate the displacement map and let's do the same but for blue. And the blue will bring it negative so it looks like it's just there you go. My set matte needs to be at the bottom. It wasn't quite working right. It was distorting it at the top as well, which I wasn't expecting. And so, oh, that's on red. That's why. I was thinking to myself, why is that doing that? Okay, there we go. So now the blue would just activate the blue, and the red just the red. And so now with that motion tile effect set in, we have our with nice reflective text, and it's as simple as that. And so if you want to stop the video here, you can, but I think it would be worth just explaining a little bit about the displacement map. I'm going to bring in a grid, and let's pop that in its own composition, and let's make a new composition, and let's call this paint, and new solid. Actually, I'm just going to keep that mid-grey, and let's go to the paintbrush and double click the layer, and let's paint a red section there, and let's change the next one to blue. Now I'm going to show you what happens if I leave these like they are. On my grid layer, I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to bring in the distort displacement map, and I'm going to use, oops, before I use it I need to import it. I'm going to import the paint option in here, just hide it, and go back to my effects and use the paint as my distortion. Now I'm going to leave it on red for both of them. Now what's happening is they're both being distorted, both the red colour and the blue. And when I first started, I thought to myself, oh, it's just not working. Someone's made a mistake. But actually what it is that these particular colours need to be screened. So this is me guessing, if I'm honest, that when you add it, the paint, it basically adds the actual overlay of the colour, so as well as the actual colour itself. So I'm guessing it's adding the grey to the red in some way or form. That's all I can imagine. Somebody might be able to enlighten me. But anyway, it works like that. If you screen it, that's why it's so important when you do the text that it has to be on screen here and here in order for you to get that nice effect. And that effect, by the way, of course, you can play with to your heart's content, make it very distorted. And of course, you don't have to settle for the bevel. You could do it like a nice smooth reflection over the top, which also could look quite nice, like so. And so just getting back to the grid again, so we've got one for the red. Let's duplicate that, and if I change this one now to blue, voila, and the blue one comes in. And so with that in mind, you can use the blue and red colours to create some really nice controlled effects with the distortion map, displacement map, beg your pardon. Thanks for listening, take care, goodbye.